We're here at the Knowledge Lab at the Institute of Education, University of London, to discuss what secondary maths teachers should be doing to remain motivated and interested in their subject throughout their career. I'm Rob Eastaway. I write and speak about mathematics, and with me are Celia Hoyles, who is the government's Chief Advisor for Mathematics, Ron Taylor, General Advisor and Inspector for Maths in Hampshire, Alison Clark-Wilson, Principal Lecturer in Maths Education at the University of Chichester, and Adrian Oldknow, who is Chair of the Professional Development Committee at the Mathematical Association. So Celia, once they've qualified, do maths teachers need to learn any more maths?
Well, need is a really rather strong word, but I do think that the government is very committed that all teachers have the opportunity to continue to engage in professional development in mathematics, that's subject-specific professional development. And that involves learning more mathematics, but also learning how to teach it and how to put it into practice. And I really am completely supportive of this agenda. I think we all need to learn more mathematics. And I think mathematics has changed. What we know about mathematics has changed. There are different tools by which we can engage with mathematics. And all that makes the subject fascinating and alive. And I think most importantly, you can engage with mathematics by thinking about how children engage with mathematics.
It's difficult to separate out this notion of me as a mathematics teacher about how I engage in doing mathematics and how that gives me insights into the pedagogy. But I need to do it myself. Yeah. And I need some kind of incentive to do it as well, though. I need to have some purpose behind doing it. So, yes, it does give us insights into how children learn, but what's the incentive for teachers to do it? What is the incentive for them to engage themselves in the process of mathematics?
I mean, it's interesting to do something new in maths.
Aren't teachers going to say about this, yeah, but when am I going to get the time to step back and do all of this?
There's no doubt that having the current system, which is very much driven by high-stakes examination, that is a teacher's perspective. So, in thinking about the way the curriculum is developing and will continue to develop in the coming years, how adjustments to the assessment system are going to be necessary to allow teachers to feel free and have a little bit more control over how they build these things into the curriculum.
Alison's talked about the pressure which all teachers feel, which is about his exam results, and of course that's exacerbated by the raising of the stakes of mathematics, and therefore teachers feel that's really their prime enterprise is to get good results. On the other hand, we've got in England, or Britain as an industrial nation, whose really survival lies on having a knowledge economy, and that means getting more people to want to attract to take the more difficult sounding subjects, the science and engineering and mathematics. And how can we persuade teachers to become the vehicles that turn kids on to seeing these subjects as exciting and interesting subjects?
But isn't the way to persuade is to engage with mathematics? If teachers are given the opportunity to actually work on mathematics, and I don't mind whether it's using ICT and exploring something they've never explored before. It could be puzzles and games, it could be modelling what's happening outside, it could be science, it could be engineering. And it's all those different ways of re-engaging teachers with mathematics.
You're quite right. There are several ways we look at this. We look in terms of the way in which ICT is changing the way in which we work with mathematics. We can look at the way in which society itself needs knowledge of mathematics, about the way in which we're misinformed, in fact, in terms of what the newspapers say, in fact, what the media say, and governments indeed. And it gives us a powerful tool for examining that. So if you like, a core skill that maths brings is an analytical one, a questioning one, and a rationale to something which we might not have if we didn't study mathematics.
These might be all very worthy things, but how does the teacher get passionate about
There's
them?
a sense of a learning community happening within the school. So learning doesn't just happen by kids in classrooms. That the culture of the way the school operates is very much that they're looking forward, and teachers are encouraged and given time to continue to want to discuss and develop their subject knowledge. I think many English departments would be very likely to be talking about books they were reading and plays that they were familiar with, but it's less likely to hear a maths department discuss a maths problem they're jointly working on.
Why is that? Why don't maths teachers sit round?
It's definitely an issue around the perception, the public perception of the subject and the public perception of the mathematics teacher, and you either sign up to that or you act in a way that dispels that myth.
I think it's a matter of, changing a culture. Now,
Yes.
you've got to have a bit of space to do it.
Yes.
But there are lots of very interesting and intriguing problems that, people in the outside world are really quite interesting to discuss.
People who are using video editing packages or photo montage or whatever, they're using ratios and fractions and proportions, they're flipping and rotating. And so it seems to me that's the issue, looking for ways in which you can relate the knowledge that the kids are getting through the curriculum to their own world and the world after education.
And just knowing that fact might bring purpose and better intention about the reasons for doing mathematics. And I think, if you like, there's an incentive for teachers, if you like.
I think we've got to try and work a bit more on this, and maybe it's through materials and working with mathematicians to open that up a bit, say, well, what is it that the mathematics is doing to make these things work?
And asking, what's the maths behind this? Is there any maths behind this, and is there any skill? And actually taking a real example and using that as an opportunity to explore, get them debating, discussing, and bringing some sort of non-mathematical discussion in with more mathematical discussion
think,
about randomness and other
The key
interesting
word there
concepts.
was debating, because an observation of many maths classrooms is there's not much debating that goes on in terms of the mathematics. They'll be debating about issues outside the classroom, but the notion that pupils and the teacher engage in a debate where they're actually looking to formalise, looking to take on conventions or develop notation that grows from the classroom experience rather than something that's actually imposed or comes from the texts.
The debate has to include mathematics. And
Absolutely.
I mean, what's so interesting
Absolutely.
is to bring in the outside perspective. I mean, clearly, because kids have a lot of experience they want to share. But part of that has got to involve some maths. And I think actually that is a trick to try and bring the bits together.
That's the teacher's, the key role of the teacher.
Actually opening up and thinking, wow, why is it?
What's the lines of parallel?
Yeah, and all
What
those things,
happens?
which I think is interesting for teachers, and also for them to investigate the mathematics behind it, and then how far you can go to make that investigation open to your students, Key Stage 3 or whatever. And I do want to go back to, because that sort of investigation is so facilitated by the tools we have available with ICT, which I think, trying to work out by looking around at congruent triangles and exploring them with dynamic geometry, I think we have got such potential to do that, to open up the discussion that Alison is talking about.
This is all very well, but let's remember that we're talking about teachers who are extremely busy and exhausted and dealing with class day on day. They're going to say, well, where am I going to get the time to do this stepping back and thinking about my subject?
If I'm right, I think there was a white paper on teachers' entitlement to professional development at the time of Estelle Morris, which had never actually come into law. But a lot of countries actually have entitlement built into teachers' contracts. And for example, in America, the teachers are expected to go and take 5-day professional development courses, and to renew their teaching license after 10 years, they have to show what they've done in terms of professional development. I'm not saying we can do that overnight, but to have that built into the employment conditions. And the difficulty is, at the moment,
because teachers are going to say,
it's not
I
a
don't want
stick, it's an entitlement.
Right. Oh, but not out of your holiday then, and in term time that you're taking this.
Yes, you have to redefine exactly what is your holiday entitlement, I guess, what is your teaching expectation, and what is your professional development. You have to define a balance.
A lot of the ideas that you've been talking about are great for the dedicated mathematician, but a teacher of 14-year-olds might well be saying, yeah, but how does this relate to my class of normal teenagers?
Well, they can't begin to answer that question unless they're given time themselves to reflect upon that question, whether it be for their own, if you like, subject enhancement, for their own time to reflect upon what they know about maths and to come to terms with the kind of maths that now is, in the world. And if you like, maths knowledge has grown immensely in the last 100 or so years. We can never begin to know everything. But even so, unless we give teachers time to come to terms with what's out there, and also to reflect upon how that knowledge makes it more relevant to what they might do with their pupils, they're not going to get anywhere. The time is absolutely crucial to that. And what Adrian's mentioned in terms of how we must actually have an entitlement, I think Adrian used the word, to CPD in our school system, we're not going to achieve what we think we want and need.
And one complicating factor really is the local management of schools. So while the budget for professional development is effectively locally managed by the senior management of every school, high on the priority are whole school issues rather than subject issues. And if the exam results are fine, then subject knowledge of professional development of teachers is a pretty low priority.
I think what we're trying to talk about is professional development of their subject knowledge, which is something that they wish to have. And I think, yes, time is crucial, but I think what this is about is actually creating a demand for this, where we have enough teachers who really want to know. And I'm sure they do. It's just we've got to open up the discussion about what maths is about. And in a way, I see all of this as part of professional development, learning more about the subject. And it's once you make that this has got to happen, then it becomes, in a way, often quite ritualised and routinized. And this is the problem in the States, actually. Although, yes, the time, but once it gets sort of something you've got to do, then it almost becomes like a tick box. So we've got to get the balance right between, yes, we would like the time and space to do it, and we would have the supply side, so there's plenty on offer that people can do.
You're right, there's almost two extreme points of view, really.
Yes.
But it's about, you can't just, doesn't happen without some kind of structural or strategic vision taking place here,
Yes.
So, for instance, I mean, very lucky to work in a local authority where CPD for teachers is valued, and there are cluster meetings, network meetings of a variety of types.
Right.
And links with higher education.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, if you don't have that structure in place, it just doesn't happen. No. There is this notion that you do need to put something in place, it seems to me, to enable those opportunities to be there.
You're a teacher. Miraculously, you've managed to create a long evening for yourself or a day to sit down and refresh yourself and remind yourself why you love maths. What would everyone here do with that day? Or what would you suggest a teacher do with that day to get themselves excited?
I've got 3 maths problems that have been sitting pinned to my boards that give me a day and I know what I'll be working on.
Excellent.
I think that's similar. I mean, I just recaptured my interest in 3 dimensions and the perceptions of looking at different objects in different ways gives you insights into different solutions and things you can tackle. So, yeah, it's in a way, it's about doing some mathematics, actually.
I suppose it's probably, I'm in a fortune because I'm retired, so I actually do get the odd day, so I can play with those things. But it's actually trying to find out more about what other subjects are doing and where we've got opportunities to work with science teachers, design technology teachers, because the problems that they're introducing in the classroom, which the kids do find relevant, have got good opportunities for us to cash in on the maths side. And I think that's an area which the national curriculum hasn't helped at all. We're very tightly subject divided.
Celia?
I think I'd like to revisit fractals, because a long time ago, I did fall in love with Logo, which was a very simple programming language for kids. And through doing Logo, I actually started to explore fractals that I knew nothing about. And these amazing things, they're very simple programs, can generate these incredibly complex structures that are really interesting in their self-referencing, recursive, beautiful, and they have this wonderful properties, things like the Koch snowflake, where you have an infinite perimeter and a finite area. And I think those sorts of things are fascinating. And I think they're accessible for kids as well, if you give them the right tool.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much, Ron and Alison and Celia and Adrian.